Hey there, you motivational maestro in the making. Ever wondered what makes a motivational speaker tick?
Well, you're in the right place.
We're on the case. We're diving deep into the world of motivational speaking from its ancient roots
Hmm.
to the explosion of voices we hear today.
All
We've
right.
got excerpts from motivational speaking, inspirational talks, and interviews with thought leaders, and it actually traces this whole thing back to ancient Greece. Which, okay, togas and philosophy aren't exactly Tony Robbins, but I'm
Exactly.
guessing there's a connection there.
Oh, absolutely. Think Socrates, he captivated crowds with his ideas.
Right.
It wasn't just about the words themselves, but his delivery, the passion,
Yeah.
the way he got people thinking on a deeper level.
Hmm.
That's what good motivational speakers still do today, even centuries later.
Wow.
It's about that human connection.
So are you saying that someone watching a TED Talk today is tapping into that same ancient desire for connection and inspiration that had people hanging on Socrates' every word?
Exactly. Now, fast forward a few centuries.
Okay.
Our source material points out that motivational speaking as we know it really took shape in the 20th century.
Okay, so who are some of those early pioneers that paved the way for the motivational giants we know today?
Well, before the Tony Robbins we all know and love,
Right.
there was Norman Vincent Peale.
Okay.
His book, The Power of Positive Thinking, was a total game changer. He introduced this idea that changing your mindset can change your outcomes.
Right.
It sounds almost obvious now, but back then, it was revolutionary.
And look at us now. Positive thinking is everywhere. But it's interesting because the way we consume motivational content has changed so much. Podcasts, YouTube, TED Talks, it's like we have a direct line to inspiration 24/7.
And that's the thing about technology. It didn't create this need for inspiration, it just made it ridiculously accessible.
Right.
Like, suddenly everyone's an armchair philosopher with a Wi-Fi connection.
And with so many voices out there, this source makes an interesting distinction between thought leaders and your average motivational speaker. So, what separates the Tony Robbins of the world from, say, someone giving a pep talk? Is it just a fancy way of saying expert?
It's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
Expertise is key, but it's not enough on its own. A true thought leader in this space has this amazing ability to connect with you emotionally,
Hmm.
often by sharing their own stories
Hmm.
in a way that makes you feel seen and understood.
Oh, okay.
They don't just tell you what to do, they show you that transformation is possible because they've lived it.
So vulnerability is just as important as expertise.
Yeah,
It's like they're giving you permission to be human, flaws and all, while still striving for something bigger.
exactly. Take Nick Vujicic, for example.
Right.
Born without arms or legs, talk about facing obstacles. But he chose to share his story, to show incredible resilience and inspire millions with his message of hope.
Right.
And it resonates because it comes from such an authentic place.
Okay, so it makes sense why someone like Nick Vujicic is so impactful.
Yeah.
But he's not exactly giving us productivity hacks or business advice. How does this idea of emotional connection translate to other areas of motivational speaking?
It's about relatability.
Okay.
Oprah Winfrey built her entire empire on it.
Right.
People resonate with her because she's real, she's honest about her struggles, and that makes her message of self-beliefs so much more powerful.
It's like, if she can overcome those challenges, maybe I can too.
Right.
It makes the impossible seem a little more within reach.
Exactly.
But I'm curious because this source also talks about different formats of motivational content, inspirational talks versus interviews. Is that just a fancy way of saying TED Talk versus podcast chat?
You're spot on. It's about the way the format shapes our experience as listeners.
Okay.
Inspirational talks like those TED Talks we all love to dissect
Right.
tend to be laser focused.
Okay.
The speaker usually has a specific message they want to drive home often
Okay.
about overcoming a major obstacle or making a fundamental mindset shift.
Right.
They're designed to be those aha moments that stick with you.
Okay, so TED Talks are like those motivational espresso shots. What about interviews? When is it better to settle in for a longer conversation?
Think of interviews as those long, satisfying meals
Okay.
where you get to really savor the nuances of someone's story.
Right.
There's more room to explore different angles, to uncover those golden nuggets of actionable advice that listeners crave.
Right.
It's less about those big, sweeping statements and more about the nitty-gritty of how someone actually achieves something remarkable.
Can you give me an example? I'm always up for borrowing a good life hack or two.
Our source uses a great example. Imagine listening to Bill Gates talk about climate change.
Okay.
It's going to be big picture, long-term solutions, right?
Right.
But then imagine listening to Malala Yousafzai.
Okay.
Her story is about on the ground, courage, fighting for education.
Right.
Both incredibly inspiring, but in totally different ways.
It's like sometimes you need that global perspective, and sometimes you need that boots on the ground inspiration to take action right now.
Yeah.
But what about the people who are out there actually implementing those big ideas? I'm thinking of someone like Tim Ferriss. His whole brand is about productivity hacks and optimizing your life.
And people gobble it up.
Yeah.
It speaks to that desire for actionable advice.
Yeah.
Ferriss breaks down complex topics into systems. People
Right.
read the 4-hour workweek and think, if he can do it, maybe I can squeeze in an extra hour of sleep and still achieve world domination.
Right.
Okay, maybe not world domination, but you get the idea.
It's like those behind-the-scenes documentaries.
Yeah.
You get to see the process, the struggles, and that makes the end result seem a little more attainable.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so we've gone from ancient orators to self-help gurus to productivity hackers,
Yeah,
and now it seems like everyone and their mother has a podcast.
right.
Did the internet really change the motivational speaking game that much?
It's not just about quantity, it's a total paradigm shift.
Okay.
Think about it.
Okay.
You have more access to inspiring voices than ever before.
Right.
You mentioned TED Talks.
Right.
They've become a cultural phenomenon for a reason.
Right.
They're free, they're high quality, and you can consume them on your own time.
And don't forget about the podcasts. It's like having a front row seat to a conversation with brilliance, Tim Ferriss, Lewis Howes. Even Oprah has her own podcast now.
Right.
And it does feel more intimate than, say, reading a book, right?
That's the beauty of the podcast format.
Okay.
It feels like you're eavesdropping on a conversation with a mentor or a trusted friend.
Right.
Plus, you can really dive deep into a topic. It's not just sound bites. You get the full story, the why behind the what.
And what about the interactive element that's everywhere these days? Every guru has a webinar or an online community.
Yeah.
Is that just a fancy sales funnel, or is there something more to it?
It can be a sales tool, sure. But you're right to point out that there's something deeper at play here.
Okay.
Our source really highlights the community aspect. Think about it. When you participate in a live Q&A, or you join a Facebook group dedicated to a thought leader you admire,
Yeah.
you're connecting with like-minded people who are on a similar journey.
It's like that feeling of, okay, I'm not alone in this. It's almost like a support group for people who want to level up their lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that sense of community can be incredibly powerful,
Yeah.
especially when you're trying to make big changes. It's one thing to feel inspired by a speaker on a stage, but it's another thing entirely to be surrounded by a group of people who are cheering you on,
Right.
holding you accountable and saying, hey, I'm right here with you. We've got this.
It's like the difference between going to the gym alone and having a workout buddy.
Right.
Suddenly, you're more likely to actually show up and do the work. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from ancient Greece to digital communities, from self-help gurus to productivity hackers.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what drives this enduring human need for inspiration?
Mhm.
Why do we crave these stories and these messages?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
I think it speaks to something fundamental about the human experience.
Okay.
We're wired for connection, for growth, for meaning.
Right.
We want to feel like our lives matter, and we want to believe that we're capable of more than we think we are.
And sometimes we need a little nudge or a TED Talk marathon to remind us of that. But with so many voices out there, how do we cut through the noise and find the ones that truly resonate with us?
That's where it becomes personal.
Okay.
It's not just about consuming information.
Right.
It's about finding the voices that speak to you on a gut level,
Right.
whose stories inspire you, and whose advice you can actually apply to your own life.
Right.
It's about curating your own personal board of advisors, so to speak, even if they don't know you personally.
I love that, building your own dream team of mentors.
Right.
And it's easier than ever to do that with podcasts, books, those addictive TED Talks.
Right.
You can sample a little bit of everything and find what lights you up. But it's not enough to just passively consume, right?
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
It's about engaging with the material, applying what resonates, challenging the ideas that don't quite fit.
Right.
Motivational speaking, at its best, isn't about blindly following someone else's blueprint.
It's about using those messages as a springboard for your own self-discovery.
Yeah.
Because maybe, just maybe, you have something valuable to share with the world too.
Now you're getting it. So as you go about your day, ask yourself, what are your go-to sources of inspiration?
Right.
Are you drawn to the big, bold ideas or the nitty-gritty details?
Because figuring out what flavor of inspiration best suits your palate is the first step in creating a recipe for a more fulfilling and meaningful life. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder that.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those inspirational fires burning.